Hey, you guys. Is everyone coming? Where are you? Hi. How are you guys? It's so good to see you. Oh my gosh. So many great people from so many different places. Look at you all. Hello. Hello. Thank you so much for coming to my little Zoom room. I'm excited to have you here. And maybe put in the chat like what brought you here? Why did you decide to come today? What are you looking for? All those things so that I can kind of gear the conversation, which is a massive the conversation about the sale is like a very big conversation. So it's good, because we only have an hour to like sort of curate it to you guys and what you're really looking for and what's happening for you in terms of your books and what's sort of feels mystifying and how can I kind of help you. um Oh, good, Tamara. Nice to see you, sweetheart. She's looking forward to the Gateless Academy year 2. It's always really fun to do the Academy again. I mean, you just go much deeper. It's sort of like the labyrinth where you're walking around the labyrinth and you see the driftwood and the view of the mountains and everything. And then when you do the labyrinth a second time, it's like, oh, I see what this means, and I kind of am really, really inside of this experience. So it's going to be really fantastic. Melissa Dugan, Academy alum, almost done with book. I'm so excited. Um, Lisa, hi from Nashville. Hi, sweetheart. Interested in the topic of publication. I just love being in your orbit, Susie. Hi, Daisy Florin. I keep thinking I'm going to see you this weekend at retreat and keep realizing like, oh no, I'm not going to see her, but there'll be other retreat. There's Spain. Here because Suzanne is the greatest. No pressure. Hi, Lizzie. Okay, so Amanda, I've heard so much about how traditional publishing is awful. And I'm so curious to hear the other side. Okay, good. Oh, you guys are coming from all over Canada, Vermont. Hi, Julia, New Paltz. Okay, Sarah, in the final edit stages of my book and ready to start querying. Okay, good. We'll talk about that. Interested in info on fiction and nonfiction from Molly. Okay, good. That's really helpful. I remember, Molly, that you were starting to write fiction, I think. And we can talk about the difference because there's a huge difference between those two. Ready to get moving on publishing my book and learning from Suzanne. Joni. Hi, Joni. Bruce, I'm wondering if someone can get an agent strictly based on material and nothing else. Okay, that's a really good question. Bruce, maybe you could put in the chat, if you don't mind, saying what genre you're in and maybe like just a tiny bit about your book. That'll help me really think about the question and give you information that will help for that specifically. Kimmy Escamilla, hi, sweetheart, Gateless trained teacher, Academy alum, writing drafts of queries. Oh my gosh, I'm making a list of agents for my genre, and I just love you. I love you too, sweetheart. That's exciting. Laura Rowley, laying out a roadmap for self-publishing the novel. Okay, I wanted to hear your perspective on the indie space. Really good question. Sarah Johnson, too many book projects in various stages of development. The true creative speaks. Need direction on what to push forward first. Okay, that's a really good question, and we can address that. Sarah, if you can put in the chat which of those projects feels kind of like when you rise in the morning and you right away think about your projects, which one sort of moves you? Because often when you're thinking about two different ones, right, there's like a logical mind and then there's this like intuitive, sort of almost like a mystique about the other one. So I'm just curious, like, and maybe that's not what you're feeling, but if it is, like, which one is sort of like moving you? It would be interesting to hear. And if it's different than that, you can also put that in. We're writers, so we can really use the chat. Carly Lederer, hi from Frederick, Maryland. Hi, sweetheart. I love all things Gateless. We love you, honey. Frederico, a friend invited me. I finished a nonfiction book. Oh my God, awesome. And now looking for a publisher, American in Berlin. Okay. Allison Friedman. Hey, Allison. Looking for an agent to handle my completed novel and TV series pilot. Okay. So, Allison, for the TV series, if you can tune into Sarah Montana next week for the symposium, you guys who are here, you've all signed up for the symposium, so you'll have the schedule. And she's next, and she is a Gateless trained teacher and a two-time Gateless Academy alum who decided she wanted to do TV. I mean, excuse me, film, but TV is very similar, and she's very entrenched in the industry now. And she's going to come in and she'll have so much insight into that. But the completed novel we'll talk about today. Looking for an agent for fantasy, long form, and novella. I've written both. Great, Isabel. Fantastic. Draft is generated. I think it's ready for the next step. Hi, Connie. I think I'm going to see you this weekend. I can't wait. Um, okay, so I want to say to begin with that I feel really divided about the topic of publishing, and I'll come back to the chat in a little bit. We have so many great questions here. And the reason that I feel divided, and maybe you feel like this a little bit too, is that there's a way in which I feel like when we get into the topic of publishing, it feels so different than when we're inside the work and when we're just sort of like letting it flow and feeling super fluid about it and a little bit blissed out and in wonder, even that we have this idea for a book and that we can write. I mean, it seems when you're writing that everybody in the world writes and wants to write, but it's really not true. This is a very special group of people that have this hankering to write. They have a movement inside them to move a pen across a page or to open a computer in the early morning hours and get down to it. And you can feel when a book is following you around. It's almost like a shadow when you have that idea and you just keep turning, and often it'll disappear and it's almost like you're trying to catch it. And then once in a while, you'll have those spaces like retreat or like a quick hour in the afternoon, or sometimes I'm walking and I'll just feel it coming. And it's there's almost something sensual about that feeling, right? And I get out my phone and I just start like dictating what I'm thinking, and then later I might go and work on the scene or work on the chapter. And often when I'm working with writers, like all during the academy, when I'm reading you guys or you guys are sending me pages and we're moving through craft and we're moving through how to develop it, I'll just be driving along and suddenly somebody's book will come and I'll be like, oh, I got to tell Jillian that about her work. So it's a field, I think, that we enter that's very mysterious in some ways, and yet we have to be very tactile about it. And there is a business side of it. So when we move into the business side today, and I know there's so much curiosity about it, and it's a little bit like, why am I doing this if I can't sell it? So we do want to move into that. But I want to show you that there's a bridge between the two. There's a link between wanting to sort of move yourself artistically with the story idea or with the book idea, and also wanting to move it out into the world. And if you're feeling really overwhelmed by publishing, there could be two reasons. One is that you just don't know anything about it. I mean, I've been in the industry for 25 years, so I've worked with New York for a very long time, and I've worked with many agents and many publishers and many indies, and I've worked with people who are wanting to self-publish. And so to me, it's not mysterious. But I remember back when I was trying to get my first novel published, I was like, oh my God, how do you do this? Like, do you just knock on doors, or how do you get to New York? It felt very scary and it felt big. And one of the reasons that I do this, one of the reasons that I started Gateless Writing and that I work with writers in the academy is so that they won't feel like that, so that they won't feel like, oh my God, I have this great idea, but when I think about publishing, I kind of freeze, or I feel like I'm not enough, or I don't know enough people. And it's true, as you know, if you're in the academy or you're in the Gateless community, you do network a lot just because you meet people who are publishing, who are in that world. And it's really nice to have that. It really is, because then it feels less scary because you know people who are already in it. But if you're just entering Gateless and you're feeling overwhelmed, let's get you some resources for it. So that's the first reason that you might be feeling a little overwhelmed. And the second reason is you may not just be ready to publish yet, and that's okay too. It's like once we start the work, automatically, if we're achievers or if we're really good at managing time or money or our lives, we're going to think about like, okay, I have this idea and I have this movement inside me, but I want to know now that this is going to be something that's going to be able to move out into the world, or like, why am I bothering? And that's a very normal feeling. And at the same time, the book often has to have a relationship with you first, where you guys are really moving, getting to know each other. And this is true of any genre. It's true of the novel, it's true of the memoir, it's true of the how-to, it's true of just narrative nonfiction. It's true of every single book, that it is a kind of intelligence and it wants to know you before you tell it transactionally, like, okay, now you have to make me, $6,000 or $7,000, like you kind of have to move with it and get to know it before you are forcing it out the door. And you don't really want to force it out the door. You really want to feel, just like you feel the movement of a book rising or a story rising, you actually want to feel that movement of publishing. Like, oh, there's nothing else I can do. I've done everything. Like, I've made this book as good as it can be. So sometimes people will say, like, I don't want to work anymore on my book, so I'm just going to send it out to New York to an agent, or I'm just going to start sending it to people because I'm a little tired of it and I feel like I've worked on it enough, and they'll tell me what else it needs. And that's a little like giving up on a friendship. Like, well, I don't know what to do about you. I don't really want to go that deep with you. So, maybe I'll just like farm you out to other people. Like maybe you could go join another group of friends or something. You really want to stick with the book through those times. You don't have to hang out with that friend for a while. Sometimes it's really good to leave the book for a while, to just give it a little space and let it gestate and then come back to it. But you really will know because the book will tell you, okay, it's time to walk in the world. And there'll be a feeling of like, I have literally done everything I can. Because I'm going to tell you the number one thing that publishers look for and agents look for in a book, the number one reason that people get published. There are many reasons, but the number one reason is because the book is good. It's a solid. It's something they haven't necessarily seen before. They can tell that the author is working with emotion that is unique and singular. And that doesn't mean it has to be like way out in the middle of nowhere. It just means that it's singular to you. It's your voice. It's your idea. They haven't seen that title before or that angle. They haven't worked with that global frame, and we'll talk about the global frame a lot in the academy. They haven't worked with that global frame before in with that same angle. Whatever it is, there's something very particular about the book that's yours alone. And the publisher is really looking for that, and they're looking for craft. They really want a well-crafted book. So sometimes it feels like that motion is going to get this great, really well-crafted book. Like, well, I have the inspiration and I have the feeling and it's passionate and it's strong and I just feel like this must be it. But that motion wants to work with time-tested craft. Any intelligence of the book is going to ask you to make sure that you're integrating with that inspiration really, 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 really good craft. And that means you want to know what an arc is, a character arc, a scene arc, the book itself, the arc of the global frame. You want to understand character nuance. You want to understand the complexity of each character, whether you're doing memoir, whether you're doing nonfiction, whether you're doing novel. You want to really understand what that middle of the book is. There's a hammock that can happen in the middle if you don't know craft in terms of how to apply it to the middle of a book. You want to know what goes into a bing bang first chapter so that that first paragraph, and there are so many skills and tools just for that first paragraph. You want to know what they are so that when you get the book out there, the people that are looking at it are like, oh, this person knows craft. And honestly, they can tell in the first few sentences. So you want to know also sentence level craft, sentence structure, the architecture of a paragraph, the architecture of a sentence, the architecture of scene. You want to know the craft of beginnings. You want to really understand dialogue. You want to understand how to cut the ends off of dialogue, how to integrate gesture with dialogue. Why do you have dialogue? Do you have dialogue all the time? When do you do narrative? When do you show? So those craft elements, which, the Academy is going to give you all of that. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to sit there and be like, wait, what does she mean? What is the arc? I'm going to teach all that during the Academy. You're not going to have any problems. You're going to really understand it. And if you don't get it, we're going to get on the call and you're going to be like, I don't know if I'm doing this. You know what I mean? So don't worry about it, but just know that if you have that solid craft, that's so much of why the sale happens. And the other piece of it is really knowing the technology for the different genres. And by that, I mean like the novel technology is much different in terms of like how you sell it and how you get it out there than the memoir. And the memoir is a lot different than nonfiction. But another thing that really sells the book is premise. And premise is really weird. It's like you think you know your premise before you write it, and people try to outline their books and they're like, I know what I'm writing about. But premise often comes from writing. You might have an idea of like, I'm going to write about post-trauma and how I have this new idea to impress upon the audience about how trauma works inside of primary relationships, say, or inside of parenting or whatever you're working on. And that is like something that is the topic. But premise is a little different, and it is the result of writing. And that's why in the Academy we have that new rules studio that Terry Trespigio started that's just like, get down to it and write. Write 3 or 4 times a week for an hour inside of this kind of insulated room of Gateless with these Gateless teachers, learn what other people are writing so that your work starts to get really singular, but also so you're generating and you're generating. And only a percentage of that actually gets in the book, but the generating of material reveals to you what your premise will be. And that premise will become sort of something that you stand on to explain what your book is about in your query or in your proposal or when you go to talk to agents or publishers. So like Daisy Florin, who's on the call right now, My Last Innocent Year, her book, her novel, she had a premise of, she knew as she wrote, like, oh, this is a campus novel, right? And like some people don't even know that that's a genre within a genre, but it really is. And so then she had a little bit of her premise to stand on. And then the premise became, this last year of being in college and the sort of turning that happened with this woman in this last year, and that it displayed throughout her whole life as an influence. It decided all of her choices. So then she had another premise that was coming around the character, right? So she wrote into this. She wouldn't have said at the beginning, like, well, I know it's about this and I know it's about that. She's like, I have a feeling. And then when she wrote the scenes, that started to reveal itself to her. And that will happen to you too. Like the more you write. So sometimes it's better not to jump the gun and kind of like do an outline and get the proposal ready and sell. Sometimes it's really good to let the writing inform you of what it is. And the writing comes from some place that's so much deeper and more profound than the thought process. So when you're actually writing, you are tuning in to an intelligence that's vaster, deeper, more complex, more symbolic than the logical or the reasoning mind that has to, like, go to the DMV and get the car inspected and da 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 da. Like, there's so much going on with that logical mind, right? So it's not as imaginative. It's not as tuned in with long-term memory. Some people write in retreat and they'll be like, I've never remembered that until now. And it is that they're kind of in a container in Gateless that's very high positive regard, and that is part of it. But a lot of it is the writing itself, that they're accessing an intelligence that is not usually there when they're just driving along, picking up the kids, trying to get the laundry folded and all of that. So the writing itself will have a surprise element to it that will shock you, that will bring forth things like premise. And believe it or not, it will bring forth the time to sell. It often brings to you the agents. Like, people tell me after the academy when they're selling their book, like, I found my agent in the strangest way, and it's like somehow the writing and that feeling that we sometimes have that it comes from something beyond the human condition also tends to bring us connection, to bring us the right connection in order to move us out into the world. So look out for that. Like, if you're at a place right now, particularly if you've already done the academy and you're looking to do, to get it out into the world, you'll notice that will happen. Like, oh, it was the weirdest thing. I just got binged. Or like Kelly Anderson during the teacher training, she had just done the academy and she was fielding a lot of emails from agents who wanted her book. And she had just had a feeling. I know this is the woman. I don't know why. And they were all wanting to fly in and take her to lunch and, all those things, which was very exciting. But she kind of knew. And you had a sense when she talked about it that the book was choosing the agent for her. So this all might seem kind of like magical thinking or whatever. But if you've been in the industry for this long, you start to see those patterns, and you guys can really rely on them because they're out there and they're going to happen for you too. So we will talk about the tactile nature of what it means um, to publish, but I wanted to say all that first. And Heather, who's taking the academy again, is asking about the upcoming year and the academy, like, how much do we deal with the sale of the book? We actually deal with it a lot. At the last two seminars are all about the sale. You get agents' names. Those last 2 months were just entrenched in the sale, entrenched in you guys moving out. But all year, it's not like we're like, okay, we're not going to think about that right now. Like, it's going to come in and we're going to, address questions about it and make sure you guys are basically ready for the sale. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're not in isolation of that experience. And I think a lot of times, like, a lot of MFA programs, they kind of teach you to write, and then they're like, okay. And then the writer's like, wait a second. Well, wait, hold on. Where do I go? How do I publish? And we don't want to leave you stranded like that. That should not be how this works. You want finally for the sale and the business of writing to be very integrated with your writing itself. So to have them in isolation and not have them talking to each other, it's not going to work for the writer's career. So we really want to try to move away from that model and move into a model of like, yeah, I know I'm going to sell this. I might not be ready yet, but I do want to know all the information and get the resources and have the network in order that I know that at the end of this, that is my goal. Or you might want to self-publish, like Laura Rowley's saying. But if you self-publish, you also want all that craft. You want the book to hit an industry standard, and then you get a lot of agency over the publishing process when you self-publish, which is probably what she's really looking forward to. Um, yeah, so Casey was there when Kelly Anderson had that feeling and she just knew. Yeah, it's very specific, and that happens a lot. I mean, if it doesn't happen, it's a little confusing. Like, if a lot of agents want your work, it can be a little confusing if you don't have that feeling, but there are other metrics that you can use to choose, um, to choose um, the agent. Okay, so Janice O'Leary, hi, how are you? It's good to see you here, love. She's an Academy writer and very, very established as a journalist. So she says a recent publishing newsletter letter written by an agent gave the advice to throw away your first book. This seemed so dis I'm sorry, I'm laughing. This seems so disheartening to me, like giving up on the book before it even got a chance. I can understand letting it. Okay, okay, that is the most horrible advice I've ever heard. Throw away your book. We just had a gateless writer get like multiple seven-figure deals on her first book. Like, let me just throw away $1 million or whatever. Don't do that. I don't know why somebody would ever say that. That is so ridiculous. I can't even tell you. But you want to work with your first book, like this writer who got the seven-figure deal, she wrote it and then she was like, well, this is a little sparse and it probably won't sell and I need to like fill it out and layer it. And that's what she did in the academy. And then it went to sale. But like there's always craft. You know what I mean? And if you have a manuscript, I've seen people say like, well, I just put the manuscript in a drawer because it didn't work and I started over. And more than anything, I want to say like, oh, okay, we'll get it out of the drawer because we can just craft it. It really is knowing craft. And so many people, I remember Kristen Miller, who's Kristen Song, her maiden name is Miller. I've known her for a long time. And um, she didn't know what I meant by craft. She was like, I don't know what you mean. She was trying to figure out about the academy last year. And now she has like an incredible agent. She's out in New York and it's really good. But she didn't know what craft was. She was like, what is Suzanne? She had to actually Google it. Like, what does Suzanne mean when she's talking about craft? You really want to know craft. It's sort of like um it's sort of like singing all your life, but like having no idea about pitch or how to sing, how to use the voice, like how to use the mouth, anything. And so you're just kind of singing. And then you sit down and you start to understand how to use this voice. It's like that with the craft of the book. There's just so much to it. And what's magical about it is like people will come into the academy with a book or an idea for a book and then they'll leave and they'll be like, I had no idea my book could be like that. And that's craft. That's what that is. It's not magic. It's like every single week you're learning something new about how to work with that material. And you need that because then it's honed and it's polished and it has those arcs we talked about. There are circular structures in the book that you want to know about. Want to know how to handle time. Why do people end chapters? You know what I mean? There's where they end them. How do you ground the reader? Why do people keep turning pages? All those questions have answers. And the agents and the publishers know that. And they will know when they get the book that you might be like, you might have some raw talent, you might have a great idea, but you don't know craft. So it's really, really important to have that craft. And then you can work with that first book rather than throwing it out. Why? Why would you throw that out? It's never ruined, ever. A book is never ruined. You can always add to it or take it away or craft it or revise it or move time around or move chapter 8 to the beginning. Like once you have a book, you have a gold mine. So Janice, I know that's that's a long way of saying, I think unsubscribe, man, unsubscribe. Teresa Cantley. Hi, Teresa. Oh my God, I'm so happy. I was just thinking about you the other day. I just finished my first draft and I couldn't have done it without Gateless. Oh, I love that you were with me on your first draft. I'm entering into the second year of the program and looking forward to publishing. Yeah. I think one of the reasons that we have the alumni tract is because sometimes you're like so overwhelmed with how much you can learn about the industry in that first year. And now, Teresa, you're going to just settle in. Like, you have this beautiful book that you wrote, and now you can settle in like, oh, I could revise it this way, and I could use this premise, and I could use all those proposal seminars to do this instead with a proposal. You know what I mean? You're going to be able to really work with it. It's so exciting. Oh, thanks for that link, Carly, to the Academy. Yeah, I know some of you aren't in the Academy, and I'm talking to you too. It's just good to also talk to everyone who's in that space so that you kind of understand what's going on. Okay, so Angie, hi, sweetheart. I'm glad you're here. So it's interested in the pros and cons of using a publisher versus self-publishing. Let's go there. Let's just go to that first question. It's such a good one. So essentially, you have so many options when it comes to publishing nowadays. And we think sometimes we're looking through this tiny little keyhole of like Simon and Schuster, Scribner, Harper's, and that's who you hear about. But in fact, around that is this whole banquet of opportunity. And there are small press publishers who are really good, who look for books that are high craft quality that have fallen out of the mainstream publishing and don't know where to go. You have university presses like Tamara talked about in her symposium call. And if you haven't seen that call, I highly recommend it because Tamara is really adept during that call of very concisely letting us know why she loved being with her academic publisher. And they do very hip books, and it's very fun to be with them because you're getting a lot of attention. And a lot of the small press, like Victoria Waller, she went with a very small press for her rather big book, and she's gotten like incredible sales from going. So sometimes you go with a small publisher, sometimes a huge publisher, sometimes you self-publish. And why? Like, what's the difference? I mean, the thing about the big publisher, you guys, is that it can take a little while. Like first, you can't sell to a big publisher without an agent. It just doesn't ever happen. It's not, I mean, the agent kind of serves almost like an attorney in some ways. You'll also usually have an attorney, but a lot of times they're reviewing contracts. They're supposed to be on your side in terms of getting you everything you need from the publisher. They're your go-between, your bridge. And getting that agent, I mean, the average they say is about 75 tries before you get an agent. And that isn't to like put a wet blanket on it. I sent it out to a dozen and 10 wanted it. And, Kelly Anderson, as we were saying, sent it out. I think all the agents wanted it. I had a writer recently that like 35 agents wanted her. And we were on the phone all week interviewing. So it's not like it doesn't happen, but it's often one person that sees the beauty of the work and wants it. And you're sending out and sending out and sending out. And then finally it's kind of hooked. So you don't, I had a writer once who was writing a memoir and she got a lunch date with one of the agents who liked it, but when she got to the lunch, she really didn't like the person, and so she was like, "I'm never going to publish my book because I can't find an agent." And it was one person. So you do want to like keep sending it out. It's very important because it could be that you stop at 35 and it's like the 65th person that would have wanted it. So it's a numbers game like most of publishing. And that can take a while. You're sending out queries, and so you write a query, you finish the book usually. Sometimes you finish a proposal. I really recommend trying to write the book. If you're doing nonfiction, at least a rough draft. The novel needs to be like golden, it needs to be revised, polished, edited a million times, rewritten. Like, the novel has to be like really good. And the nonfiction book, because you're selling on proposal, and if you guys don't understand that, I can explain it, doesn't have to be like right there, but the proposal has to be right there. And sometimes that's an 80-page sort of, it's a prop, I call it, that you're moving to say to a publisher, an agent, like, I want to do this thing. And then they're either saying, yes, this is validity, we pay you to write the book, or no, we don't see validity. So for both of those that way of going about it, either way it takes time, right, in trying to find that agent. And then once you find the agent, once you write your queries and you're finding the people, and we help you with that in the academy. Obviously we don't just leave you swimming around wondering we give you the names of all the big agencies and who to query and how to query and the structure of the query, which is very important. You want it to be industry standard, and also the proposal, same thing. So you have to do all that for getting the big publishing deal. And then you have to wait, like 3, sometimes 4 weeks. And then you write another email saying to the agents who have manuscripts like really high on their desks, hi, like, don't forget, I sent you this, and are you interested? And they often will be like, oh no, I'm not interested. Or, yes, I am interested, but I have to talk to my readers about it. Or, yes, I am, and I want to get on the phone and interview you. Do you see what I mean? So there's a long process. And then they say, yeah, I love it. I want to take it. And then they have to sell it to the publishers. And that can take a long time. They might have edits for you in the manuscript because they're editing for the sale, for the acquisitions. The publishing house says, yeah, I want to acquire this. So they might have to edit it because they know the market is a little different. You have to tweak it a little bit or whatever for the prop and the manuscript. So that takes a little bit of time. And then you've got to have your agent has to send it to all these publishers, and they're usually sending it to like 25 publishers if they're really good. And then you have to wait for all of them to read it and have interviews with you and talk about it with their team and their marketing team and their sub editors. And like it can be literally endless. And then it's 18 months in production. It's a big deal. And there's nothing wrong with that, but some people are like, oh freaking hum, like I want to get my book out there. So with small press publishers, you don't have to have that big a thing. You often have to have a proposal for a memoir or a nonfiction book, as Tamara did for hers, as everyone, that you've talked to in the symposium had to do for theirs. And the Academy goes over that really with a fine-tooth comb. And for the novel, you have to have the novel ready, like we said, but it's faster because the small press publishers are really focusing very much on their writers, and they don't need agents. So you don't have to go through that whole thing. You can just, send to them directly. And then once you get them, they're often doing things like print on demand. So you're not having to wait for 18 months for that production cycle. And you're also not competing with all those other books that are also in the production cycle. So you're starting to understand, right, that the big presses, it's like, is so much time, and the smaller presses, not as much. Self-publishing, so easy. It's like, oh, I mean, I kind of recommend going with a hybrid, like Murphy Lewis has a beautiful hybrid press. It's called IML publication. She does a contest every year, and she produces beautiful books. And when you work with a hybrid, they know it already. They know the map of it. So they're like helping you with cover design, formatting, the ISBN, page numbers, how to, it's like a whole thing, how to publish a book. So sometimes it's better to go with somebody who's already done it and can kind of lead you through it. And with hybrid, you do pay them, but you're going to pay for it anyway, of those pieces, like the cover design, the ISBN, the formatting, the proofing, all of those parts of production. But you pay for them to help you with it. And it's usually not that much more than you would do it for themselves. Usually people, like Murphy Lewis is not like trying to get rich. She just wants to help people, and she knows that books fall between the cracks, really good books. But it is a way of sort of self-publishing that's actually got a publisher's name to it. And you just want to watch out for hybrids because they can rob you blind. So if you come across one, if you can just send me a quick email and let me know, like, is this a valid one? What do you think of this? This is how much they want to cost. I get that all the time. And I can usually tell. But self-publishing is very quick. It's print on demand. You could learn all that yourself, the cover design and the ISBN, the proofing, the formatting, through Ingram Press, who does like independent publishing, and you can get it out whenever you want. And then it's print on demand. So you have outlets like Barnes and Noble online, or Amazon, or wherever, that will sell the book. You often have to ship them yourselves, but not always. Like if you go through places like outlets like Amazon, they'll ship it for you. And you could do that, like maybe if you wanted, if your book was ready and you wanted to get it out by Christmas, you could do that. So that's the difference. You're not going to get the kind of distribution that big presses give, but big presses don't do a lot of promotion. Like nobody really does promotion anymore. They're like, okay, author, who do you know? Because they have so many other expenses, and because they're also trying to really produce a great book, and then they're also trying to distribute it. So worldwide distribution, like Murphy Lewis does, getting it out into all these outlets and all of that, it kind of usurps for them promotion. So it's a good idea to research book promotion to find, niches where you could sell the book. And sometimes you could do bulk and repeat sales where you're going to conferences or you're speaking or you're teaching or like Kate Baldwin, who's an editor at Gateless, is working on a cookbook with an author right now. And the author has a huge Instagram following, and she's also like a real local talent in the Boston area. Everybody loves her and everybody knows her cooking, and they all want the cookbook. So every time she gives classes and does like these dinners that everybody loves to go to. And so every single time she's going to be able to sell those books. And you can do this with big publishers too, but they get most of the proceeds. Whereas, like, Mary Gaucher, of course, if you haven't seen her Luminary Call, she's an Academy alum too. And she had a memoir come out and she always sells that at her gigs. And that book will sell like to the entire audience, and she's with a big publisher. She's with St. Martin's, but she's not seeing very much of that money. There's the audience is getting that book and having her sort of in their psyche almost. And she gets a little bit of proceeds, but self-publishing and hybrid publishing, like once you pay the hybrid publisher to help you publish your book, you give them that money and then it's all your money most of the time. But with small presses and the big presses, it's like really, I mean, it's very small percentage. I don't know what your contracts are going to be, but they're usually really small percentages that you actually take home. So yeah, so you can kind of, I hope that helps. You can kind of see that it's a complex industry and it has a lot of different um, doorways. Um, let's see, let me find another question. You guys are asking such good questions. Oh, good to hear from you, Kristen Swanson. Yeah, the proposal, she's working on her proposal. That the proposal is a beast. As Teresa will tell you, it's like you get a draft and then it's like, oh, I'm gonna work into this a little bit more. Um, Oh, this is so interesting what you guys are working on. Are you guys seeing the chat? This is like, um, oh, I like that, Allison, that you're working on prescriptive memoir. You're working up the nerve to get a proposal started. Yeah, I think one of the ways to get the proposal started is really to know that, your overview should really only be a page, a little more than a page, if that. So that's the premise of your proposal. We'll talk about this in the academy. I'll just bring you right through that proposal and like tell you everything about each of those sections. But the overview is you're gonna like write and write and write and write to get the overview for the proposal. And that's something we talk about a lot. Like just get a banquet of words about what the book is about. And then you're gonna start to like pull, like, okay, this isn't essential, but this is, and like, maybe I need to move this up here because it's the actual premise of the book. This tells the global frame and all of that architecture of that overview. Because that's agents that I talk to always say, like, 9 out of 10, I look at the overview first and I really decide a lot based on that overview, like yay or nay. And then they look at the rest of the proposal, which has, those different sections in it. So maybe just writing about the book love will get you over that hump. Just like, what am I trying to say? What do I love? What is this book about? And just sort of let yourself go. And then you can pull and revise and all of that. Emily, so great to have you here, learning so much in these symposium meetings. I love the symposium. It's so fun because it's like we can all gather and there's no transactionality to it, which is so nice. Okay, Adriana, from Vermont. Hi. I'm nearly finished editing my first book. I'm not quite sure what the next step should be. Well, the first step, usually, when you're done, is to set the book aside. So the gestational period is something that most people don't know about, but if you can set it aside for like enough to almost like forget about it. I mean, some people say a year, I would say like a month, and do other things, 6 weeks. And then come back to it. It can be 2 months and then come back to it. And actually, that's the best editing eye, is the eye that like looks at it fresh and can see it. And also making sure that your editing and your revising for a novel is in parts. So that's why in the academy we have like beginnings, and then there's this whole section on beginnings, because you essentially, when you go to edit, and then there'll be like a whole section on scene and how to create these compelling scenes and the architecture of a scene and how many people in a scene and how many scenes per chapter. And like, so when you edit, rather than going like page 1 all the way to page 300, what you want to do is actually take your editing in parts. So you're looking, say you start with beginnings, you're looking at every beginning, the beginning of the book, the beginning of each scene, the beginning of each chapter, the beginning of when you first introduce a character. And this is in memoir and prescriptive nonfiction as well. It's every beginning that you have, you look, am I doing the craft pieces that beginnings really need? And, you know, there are those tools and those skills, right, that you need for those beginning, anything that you begin. And in the academy, we talk all about that, you know, everything that you need, almost like a checklist of every beginning. Like, oh, am I grounding the reader? Am I, you know, all those things. Am I giving the global frame? Am I framing the scene? You know, whatever it is. And then you can go. Sometimes you go right to dialogue, and you think, okay, I'm going to take all the tools I have for dialogue, and I'm going to just go through the book and look at dialogue, and I'm going to edit my dialogue and hone the dialogue based on these skills that I have. And then you're going to do it for character, and you're going to, you know, take one character first. And then, so it's interesting, isn't it, that when you read, it's like a linear process, but when you edit, it's spatial and it's elemental. So once you can do those things, and then a lot of times what I tell my writers for novels, particularly because they're so dependent on voice, is to read it aloud, the whole thing into a recorder. My voice recorder is a great one on iPhone. It has unlimited space. It's fantastic. And as you're reading aloud, you'll find that you'll begin to edit. Like, oh, that isn't quite what I wanted to say, or this isn't how I wanted to say it, or this is a little clunky. So you stop the recorder, you do the edit, and then you keep reading it aloud. And then you listen back to it. And as you're listening back, you're editing it, because voice is going to be like the number one thing that people look for. And it's not like the voice of the narrator, it's more the voice of the novel as a whole. The intelligence really is speaking to the agent. So those things, the novel sells on craft and story alone. So you just want to make sure that that's done. But congratulations, love, for finishing. Um, You're a screenwriter, Bruce. Oh, okay. So next week will be so good to meet with Sarah. I'm sure you've met with her before because you've been in Gateless for a while. And a comedic absurdist. When a novel could be in the works. Oh, that's great. You're going to be great at the novel if you know how to write a screenplay. Um, Welcome, Laura Roberts, working on your first book. Deborah, hi, Deb. She wants to get her mojo back for getting fictionalized memoir out into the world. And Bob, her true love, wants to get his Fable book out. Okay, good. You guys will be just fine. And Bob is working with Kate. So in the Academy, we don't work with the younger genres, but Kate Baldwin works with them. She's our senior editor at Gateless. So if you guys have like YA, middle grade, picture book, that kind of thing, then hit me up and I'll give you a connection to Katie. Bianca, hi Bianca, Academy alum, Gateless trained teacher, working on edits right now and looking to what's next. Excited to hear everything you have to say. Bianca's novel is out of this world good. She's going to have no problem at all selling it. I'm interested in an agent. Oh, hi, Ellie. Oh my God, it's so good to have you here, hon. I'm interested in an agent for spiritual work on wisdom pearls for women, especially during perimenopause. This is a very hot topic. So sometimes when you're selling, it's good to look at trends, like what's going on in the marketplace. Is this kind of book selling? Do I have comps for it and everything? And you're hitting a bell of like really, it's very trending now. And I would say, Ellie, that again, the premise is very hot. And then, you know, we've talked a little bit about platform and getting the book out to the book content, like article content out. So like Randy Crawford, who was in the Academy last year, she needed platform to sell. And that's something we've integrated into the Academy now because you work with short form publishing at the end, like getting into, the Boston Globe, the New York Times, like these smaller places. And the reason that nonfiction authors want that platform publishing piece is that agents want you to have it and publishers, unless you want to self-publish and then you don't have to sort of do that quickly. You can do it as you're working on getting the book published by yourself. But with agents and publishers, they're going to want to see that you've published. So Randy Crawford right now didn't have her platform. And so what she did is she does social media and she's really big on TikTok and she loves it, but she didn't want to do like a lot of Instagram. So what she did was she started offering places to be expert on her pieces on parenting. And she has now, I can't even keep up with her. Like every single day, I'm getting texts about how people are publishing her words. And it's almost like with that kind of platform building, you get one and then you get like many, and she's getting huge people that are calling her. So I think that maybe because this topic is so hot, Ellie, one of the ways that you can attract the agent attention is to just make sure that you're kind of also doing those short form pieces that you're really good at and just attracting their attention, like showing that there's an audience for this and that people really do want to publish on it, especially the spiritual side, because I think when we got into it, it was like a lot of physical stuff. And now we're looking at like the power and the wisdom and the spirituality of it. It's beautiful. Oh, great to have you here. I'm so glad to have you. Yeah, Colleen, you'll know. You're such a good reader. She's saying I'm not nearly ready yet, but I'm curious about how you're writing fiction, and fiction is really just about the craft of it. And then you have all those agents that I give you during the academy, huge list of the best. And you can just go with that, with that list of boutique agencies that are in there. And there's so many agents, you guys. It's really exciting. Like there definitely is an agent for your book. You just have to kind of know where to look. And we talk about that in um, the last part of the academy. Finally completed my book and I'm ready to begin the next steps. Jennifer Wilson, congratulations. She has an incredible nonfiction book about narcissism in the workplace that is, I think, going to sell really well. Yeah, so Jen, you you definitely want to move through those last the part of the academy that's on the sale, because it really step by step brings you there. Um, Okay, did I miss anyone? Do you guys have other questions? Let's see if you added. Wow, a lot of people. Yeah, Lisa says Christiane Northrup wrote about the spiritual aspect of menopause, but that was 30 years ago, and she's fallen from grace since the pandemic. Yeah, so there's a big hole to fill. Thank you, Lisa, in the market. I love that. I love it. I love Gateless because everybody always gives you like, oh, I know an agent. Like at retreat, we've had people hook up with agents like at the retreat. You know what I mean? Because you're all talking about your books and someone's like, "Oh, my agent would love that book." And then it's sort of off and running. And in the academy too, there's a lot of that cross-pollination. I have agents that have done like four gateless books because they go with one person and then they're like, "Oh, you have friends." And Melissa Dugan is saying, hearing it read to you has made huge changes. Isn't it amazing how that happens? It's like incredible when you read it aloud and then hear it back. And it's so easy. It's kind of fun. I mean, some people are like, but I don't like my voice. and that's sort of its own animal. Why don't you like your voice? I can remember hating my voice when I was a little girl and listening to it on the recording. Like that's what I sound like, but I think it's just because it's like foreign to us. Like, oh, in my head it sounds like this. It's like when I try to draw or paint, and then I'm like, why does my tree look like that? It doesn't look like that in my head or whatever. But you'll get used to it. You'll get used to hearing your voice. Looking for a partner illustration for a book on flowers in activist movements. Oh my God, I want that book. I am obsessed with flowers, Federico. Well, let me actually think about that. Um, in the symposium, you guys, there's that picture when you first go to the symposium page of that exploding typewriter. That's a man who's very close to me, and he's an illustrator, and he does only books on activism and awareness. A lot of his books are now banned. His name is Keith H. Brown, and he did that exploding typewriter just for us, just for the symposium. And I can ask him, Federico, if you get in touch with me, I'll see if he has any ideas about that. I know he himself is booked out until, gosh, I think it's like 3 years or something. But he's in that world. He's part of the Society of Illustrators, and he might know. And like I said, Gateless is so great for those kind of connections, and everybody really wants to help. It's not like I have my agent. See you later. You know what I mean? They really want to help you do it. Okay, so I have a book, Summer says, that has lots of cute images and graphics, and for the first draft, I put in screenshots for placeholders. Should I replace the images with copyright-free images, or is that something an editor will help me with? That is something the editor will connect you with somebody who can do the images. Usually the images and the writing are separate, not always. Like if you're a illustrator, obviously you can do both like Keith that I just talked about. He has a book that he wrote and it has the images. But a lot of times they're separate and the editor will find the graphics in person for you. Ara Blair, mine is a YA fantasy series. YA sometimes works with the Academy. Katie will know, so I'll give you her information. She'll definitely know, like, oh yes, this could be an Academy book or not. Okay, Rose, what would a query look like for a novel? No, I didn't discuss that, Rose. So that's such a good question. The query always has 3 sections to it. The first section is like you're meeting the agent on the page, and you're basically saying like thank you, reminding yourself that agents work for free until they actually sell a book. So I try to be really, really, really aware of the agent's time, because I know they're just like not going to make any money until they know like, oh, this book is definitely going to sell. And they often don't know if a book's going to sell. They're just going on a whim, just like we are, like an intuitive, like I think. So I always start, and I've noticed agents, sorry, excuse me, really like this. Mm. Start with a thank you. Thank you so much for this opportunity to write to you. It is an opportunity. You're getting, they're reading it, if their eyes are on it, they're reading it, and that's an opportunity. And then you just want to say, like, I really love the book. Maybe you've done enough research that you know that. And so you might tell them a couple books. And then you're very brief in that paragraph about what you know, I'm using this opportunity to, present a query for this amount of words. If it's a novel, this is the title, a coming of age story set in the Deep South, or something like that. It's just very quick. It's almost like one sentence in there. And then you have usually 2 paragraphs of synopsis that are short, and you don't want to like blow by blow, and then that happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. You're not doing that. You're actually telling them globally kind of what this book is about and what landscape it falls in. Is it who are its relatives, like in the tradition of Girl Interrupted? And well, if it's a novel you wouldn't say Girl Interrupted, but you would use a novel that you love, and you would sort of show them that you are literary and you know different novels, a couple that sort of fall in the same landscape. And then you're saying, over the course of a summer, when, four friends, you're really giving them a broad brush stroke of this is what my book is about. So what time period does it take place in? Where is it? Who? Who's in it that are the major players? And you should have major players, right? In a novel, you want like a sort of a core cast of characters. It's usually quite small, but if it's Aristotelian, you might have seven, and so you say seven main characters. You might not list every character, and how their lives intertwine over 24 hours during the biggest drug bust in Atlanta. It takes place in the early 1990s, in the tradition of X novel and X novel. It's pretty short and it's broad strokes. Sometimes it's two paragraph, sometimes it's one. And then there's one sentence that reaches a kind of climax and leaves them there. It's like a decision that the characters all have to make, or one terrifying night when she either decides to leave him or doesn't. Like it's like one big sentence, Rose, that has the like wow of that cliffhanger that's usually in the architecture of the book. It's like it's right in front of the denouement, right there, when everything comes together and there's tension and there's power and there's fire, and you want to hold them there in that last sentence, and then you drop in the last paragraph to who you are. And if you're not published and you haven't won a bunch of awards, that's okay. You can just say, like, I've lived many lives as well as being a novelist. I've worked in gritty diners. I've driven a 18-wheeler truck or shotgun in an 18-wheeler truck. You kind of like weave in some stuff that's colorful about who you are, because they want to know that. They want to know your character. And then thank you so much. This has been wonderful to be in touch, and I hope so much to hear from you. And then after you send that out, you're looking at the agent. Do they want pages? Sometimes they want a chapter. Sometimes they want 10 pages. Sometimes they just want the query to see how you're presenting it. And you look at their website to see that. And in the academy, you get all those agents that are right, good, the boutique agents that you want to move towards. But if you're doing it without the academy, then you're sort of looking, at Publishers Marketplace, or you're looking in Amazon at like people's acknowledgments, stuff like that. And you're knowing from their website what they want you to send in with that query. And then about 3 weeks, if you haven't heard from them, you forward your query to them again. And you say, hey, Allison, I'm just bumping this up in your inbox. I haven't heard from you, and I would love to hear from you. You're my first choice. Every agent is your first choice. So, okay, Sherry. Hi, Sherry. After just graduating from my first round of academy, I just wrote my overview last week. Oh my God, that's awesome. That is so great. It felt like such a huge achievement. It is a huge achievement, even though I know it will be edited and changed so much, feeling more in touch with the work, especially as the memoir is evolving and changing. Beautiful. I'm so happy to hear that, honey. You're such a fantastic writer. Every time you sent me anything, any pages, I was just like, oh my God, I want to read this whole thing. I think we all felt that. Um, yeah, let's see if anyone else. What constitutes a platform? Allison Friedman, what a good question. So what constitutes a platform is how you move the content out. So novelists, you don't have to worry about this, but nonfiction writers, you do. So say you're writing a memoir about a fertility experience, takes place over 9 months. So you want to get some short form pieces, and this is the last month of the academy when you're working in short form, where you're learning to pitch, you're learning to query, you're learning how to synthesize your work into short form pitches and things like that. And so what you're doing is you're showing the publisher that like, oh, people want this work. You don't give the whole story away if you're a memoirist, or even if you're a nonfiction prescriptive how-to writer or narrative nonfiction writer, you don't want to give the whole story away, but you're giving pieces of it. Like, I'm going to write a book about the anxiety and loneliness of, I'm going to write article for, Ms. Online about the loneliness and the isolation and the infertility experience. And that constitutes a short form essay. And you get a bunch of those out usually. And then you'll say, excerpts from this work or this work. I've worked with these publications on publishing content related to this, that sort of thing. So that's one part of platform that you could focus on. It's really fun. I love pitching. I love finding editors that are very resonant. And it's fun to do it as a group in the academy. And then the second thing that you can do is, yeah, have a Substack and see if you can get a lot of followers on that Substack and just see like who's picking up this material, who are you connecting with. The third thing is social media. If you like social media, a lot of people don't, but if you do, and you have a sense of like, oh, I'm going to do quotes like every week or every day on my topic, and I'm just going to connect with other people that are in that stratosphere. It's building a place to stand on so that when you sell the nonfiction book in proposal, you can say like, oh, I have a social media following of XYZ and I've been published in these outlets and that sort of thing. And that constitutes a platform. And we'll work on that a lot this year. Okay, what else, you guys? Oh, Annette. Hi, sweetie. Yeah, we've gotten much more robust in the academy as it relates to publishing. So yeah, that will all be in the academy. So good to have you here, sweetie. Does anyone else have anything? Let me see if I missed anything. Oh, Demetrius, I'm so happy you're here. I can't wait to have you in the academy this year. Thanks for coming. It's so great. Congratulations on your acceptance. So yeah, Demetrius is working with IML, the Murphy Lewis's boutique hybrid, and he says he has them on board with the development and they've been lovely with so much passion for my project. I mean, I feel like, right, Demetrius, that she's like a unicorn in the industry. She adores your writing and you. So it's really great that you're working with her. Kelly, hi Kelly. I've been talking about you. Kelly's going to be at retreat this weekend coming up. Oh my God. Catherine May says everyone can eventually get an agent and publish traditionally if you're willing to work hard. Yeah, like we've been talking about on craft and keep going. Yeah. And I think this is the truth, the absolute truth, and it helped me to keep going. You know what, you guys? I remember when I was working on my novel. Thank you, Cal. That's so true. And I felt a little shaky. I was like, I don't really know how this works. I didn't take writing classes in college. I just was like really in love with it. I couldn't wait to write. And I went to this workshop in Provincetown, Massachusetts, during the summer. I'd never done anything like that before. And you got to have this little, meeting tete-a-tete with the guy that was running it, um, who later hit on me. If you really want to know the truth about the industry. But anyway, he had some good things to say before that happened. And he said that the biggest challenge with writers, like why do some write, because I asked him, I was like, why do some writers get published and some writers don't? And he said one word: attrition. Like if you give up, you're never going to be published. But if you stick with it, you'll get published. And he was the one who taught me how lecherous I'm just kidding. He was the one who taught me about craft. Like you really have to know the craft, And then I went to Iowa and I like really learned craft and Bennington also. So I think it's like really understanding. And if you don't know craft, like Kristen Song said, I had to Google what writing craft was, then Google it, just get to know it especially if you're not in the academy where we really craft the book. Because I can't say enough how essential it is. It's sort of like going into an operating room and being like, well, I know the brain is in that head somewhere. So here's a knife and I'll just like start sawing or whatever. It's like, wait a second. You have to know the craft of how to do that brain surgery. And the writing in a weird way is the same thing. And it's funny, I once, Sage Wheeler, who's a gateless teacher, once sent me this article from Scientific America, which I think I've sent some of you in the who've done the academy before, that was all about the science of writing, like the math of how a book is put together. Not like it's formulaic, because it's not, but sort of like these elements, these classic elements that have been around since biblical times or been around since Gilgamesh that kind of make up a story. And when you read a great book, you don't know how to deconstruct it if you don't know craft to know, like, why was that so good? And I remember when I was first reading, I would just take home like book after book, and I would always pretend I was sick to work so I could like read these books, and then I would deconstruct them. And I remember like ripping pages out of the books that I loved and moving them around. Like, how does this actually work? How is this constructed? It was almost like deconstructing a house to see like how do you make a blueprint, you know? Like, what is this? And then I started to understand, like, oh, it kind of shot out at me like an Escher print. And I could see, oh, these are the patterns of a book. So, yeah, the craft of it, I think, is super, 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 super important. What else, my loves? Oh my God, Donna. Hi, love. I'm so excited for this weekend. I can't wait. So you guys were having a retreat in Connecticut. We do a fall retreat in Connecticut every year, and it usually fills. It fills usually like a year ahead of time, and then certain people will not be able to come or whatever. But Donna signed up this summer, and she's coming for her first gateless retreat, so she'll get deflowered in the or she'll get flowered. So helpful. Looking forward to everyone meeting the woman of my book. So true. I feel like I'm living as them until their stories are crafted perfectly. Yeah, exactly. It's like such a grace or a kindness to the characters to know how to craft them, right? I have to believe the right agent and publisher will come. It will. Your book is incredible, Donna. So their stories will be heard. Everyone has a story worth hearing. Amen. Amen. Um, okay, my loves. Well, I've kept you for a long time. I've kept you for an hour and 15 minutes. I loved having you here. I love talking about this. And I just want to admit that it's like such a huge topic. It's sort of like, here's a whale. You know what I mean? Let me tell you about this whale. It's like bigger than the room I'm sitting in, bigger than the house I'm in. So yeah, I know it's big. And I really want you guys to reach out to me. Just tell me like, oh, I felt completely overwhelmed. I had questions, but I was embarrassed to ask them, or whatever you need. That's why Gateless is here. And we're demystifying it, and we have to go slowly because it's so big. But hopefully, this was like a little part of it that kind of gave you enough resources that you feel some agency now around it. And yeah, and let me know. Definitely overwhelmed with so many projects, Summer Rose. I know that's part of the problem when you're a creative. It's like, okay, which do I work on? Yeah, so you work on the one, Sarah Johnson, that feels most alive. You work on the one that feels most alive. Even if the logical brain is saying not to do that, do it, do it, do it. Does having a podcast or guesting podcast help with platform? Yes, Karen, it does. But also, you have a premise that's very big. I've been telling you this for years, honey. You have a premise that's very big. And that premise got a lot of press. So you know that the publishing world is going to be like, oh, this story got a lot of press. People are interested in this. And so you don't really have to worry about platform unless you're platforming about the memoir topic, like, violence against women, or, that could really help. But otherwise, I would just really try to sell it and just do your proposal and try to sell it, because you have such an incredible talent in the literary. You really know craft. I remember when you came over. I remember when you were in the academy and you came to my house and we just looked at the book. You put it on that board, remember? and you had a book. You only needed a couple more scenes. So I just can't say enough, love, that you are there. You are there. You have it. You don't need anything else. You have your premise. You have your writing. You have this story that everybody's interested in. And not only that, you have these other podcasts that are out in the world that are showing your publisher that this story is interesting. True crime podcasts, all of that. You know what I mean? So here is my advice to you, Karen Kenny: sell your book. Get your proposal and sell your book. If you leave this call with nothing else, if you leave the whole symposium and your academy experience with nothing else, it's those three words: sell your book. You're going to be so happy when you sell that thing. Everybody's going to love it. You are such an incredible writer, Kieran Kenny. Um, yeah, it's almost done though. I think you could do a proposal. I really do. Yeah, the world needs to hear your story, Karen. Oh my God. All right. My lovers, my lovelies. Did I miss anybody? I probably missed people. I'm so sorry. If you send me a note, a little note, you just oh, Allison, I remember meeting you at a book club. Hi. Okay. I love it when you remind me where I met you. I had someone who applied for the academy this week who was such a beautiful writer, and she's like, "Don't you remember working with me like years and years and years ago?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I do remember." I actually remembered her pages when she said that. Anyway, do send me notes. I just love getting together and talking about books. And okay, here's really what I want you to leave, besides Karen being ready to sell her book, is that this is going to happen for you. If you have a book that's following you around, if you have that movement inside that wants to tell the story, wants to get the wisdom out there, you can do this. And I think that if you can give everything to it, like don't hold back. It's sort of like when you fall in love and you're not sure, like, should I do this? Should I put everything into it? This is the kind of thing where I am telling you, this thing that you're falling in love with, the intelligence of the book, will not fail you. It is not weak. It's strong. It is mysterious but beautiful. People have been publishing books forever, and you can do it too. You can. There's all the craft there laid out for the taking in the academy. If you're in the academy, you're going to get everything you need to publish that book, and you can do this. Don't give up on it. Really turn to the intelligence of that book and be like, I'm ready. Let's work together. Let's get you out into the world. Don't do it too soon. Have a relationship with it first. Really love it up. Get all the craft you need, all the tools, the network, all of that, which is right at your fingertips. You're in Gateless now, so there it is. And then you're going to be able to do this. So don't you ever let anyone tell you to throw your book away, or you have a shitty first draft. Your first draft isn't shitty. It is a gold mine. It's a gold mine. And all you have to do is work with it. And it's like really there. The patterns, the craft, the tools, everything is right there. It's not rocket science. It's just that you may not have had a doorway into all that that helps the book sell. But you do now. You're in a community that has that, and you're going to do it. It's not something that like only certain people can do. You can do it too. You're part of this. So go away from this call really knowing that there's a lot of information today, but like, don't forget you have the core story or the core wisdom that you want to move out into the world, and you wouldn't even have it if it wasn't possible. Okay, mwah. I adore you guys. Keep in touch. I hope I see you next week and the week after and the week after that. The symposium is not over. I adore you. Bye. Have a wonderful day.